So I'm not Australian born. I moved here from South Africa, and for the purpose of this story I would like to refer to South Africa as one kingdom and Australia as another kingdom. I became a citizen of the Kingdom of South Africa not by choice, so to say. My great-grandparents moved there. Different grandparents at some stage in their life decided to move to South Africa, and that's why I'm a South African citizen. I was born there and I was raised there. While I was in South Africa, I heard of a different country to our east that is called Australia, a different kingdom where it's safe to live. We'll be free, where my children will be able to walk on the street without me having to be concerned about their safety. My wife would be concerned about if I'm driving to work, I might be hijacked. She won't have those concerns anymore. But the problem is I couldn't move to Australia. My qualification wasn't good enough. They didn't recognize my qualifications or anything like that. I didn't have anything that I could offer Australia. So they weren't interested in me as a citizen. And that was it. A while later, one day, a stranger out of the blue asked me whether I would like to move to Australia, and I would like to move there. They are willing to sponsor me because they are looking for people with my job skills, not necessarily my qualifications, and we were quite excited. It was a little bit of a process, but during that process, obviously one starts to speak with your friend and things like that, and ask them what do they think. So one of them told me that Australians are very legalistic, or what you're allowed to do and not allowed to do. Some states have something like 278 criminal laws, things that you could do wrong. You just don't know what you're going to do wrong. He told me things that, you're not even allowed to let your child do a handstand unless you're qualified to do that. If you want to move from one house to another house, you're not allowed to move your own furniture. You have to use a moving company and everything like that, and very regulated. He said, no, I wouldn't like the Kingdom of Australia. Another friend told me that in his experience, Australians are very arrogant. They're difficult people to come along with, and he based that on what he's seen of sports people on television, and maybe commentators and things, and he said, how can you want to live in a country where people are like that? A farmer friend told me that he heard that Australians are extremely lazy. They don't want to work, they just want to sit around. So if you do get a job there, they're going to expect you to do all the work because they don't want to work, they're lazy. Then some Australians, they don't like foreigners, especially people from third world countries, and I am from a third world country. They don't like us. They think we're taking their jobs away, their opportunities away from them and their children, so they won't particularly like you. I worked with a person that has actually moved to Australia, I think twice, and every time she'd be here for a week or two, and then she'd stop her moving process and move back to South Africa because she felt it wasn't safe here, the schools weren't good enough, and all sorts of stories. She really gave the country a bad report, and so those are the kind of things that I heard. Some people told me the only people that want to live in Australia are the ones that are born there. Nobody else really wants to live there. Before we could actually move over here, we had to go for health tests and rigorous things, and they only take the healthy and the strong, and even your children have to be healthy. They can't be sick and things like that, so it's quite a thing. You can't come here if you can't speak English, you can't speak their language. You have to be able to speak their language. We had to go for tests to prove that we could speak their language. But we came in any case, in spite of what friends recommended and things like that, because we also heard good stuff, and we decided that we want to explore this thing a little bit further. We came on a sponsored visa. Things worked out for us, and later on we became permanent citizens. And even that becoming permanent citizens, you had to go, you couldn't be a criminal, you had all sorts of things and loops that you have to jump through to make sure that you're a good citizen, you're a good person. But we did all of that. Luckily we made the grade. Then we decided to become citizens, which was quite interesting. You get this book that you have to study because you have to do a test about all the stuff about Australia and the laws and the rules and things like that you have to obey by. And for me the interesting thing was that many of the laws were similar, and the things were similar, driving and all of that to South Africa. It's not different. They may be just adhere to the laws better here. But one thing is, you can't say that you're an Australian because you live by their laws. You actually have to go through the citizenship process, and you can't make your own rules. You can't say, I want to become a citizen, but these couple of stuff that you expect of citizens, I'm not willing to do that. I'm not willing to pledge to Australia. I'm not willing to drive on the right side of the road, which is actually the left side of the road. You can't make your own rules when you're in Australia. You can't make your own rules and say, I'll become a citizen, but these are my conditions. You have to embrace their laws, their rules, and do it on their terms. You cannot do it on your own terms. And we were willing to do that. At some stage, you had to make a pledge. I'll read the pledge for you. From this time forward, under God, I pledge my loyalty to Australia and its people, whose democratic belief I share, whose rights and liberties I respect, and whose laws I will uphold and obey. You have to make a commitment to that kingdom, and then only were we allowed, after all this stuff, to become citizens. And one thing I want to say is that many of the things that I heard about Australia wasn't true. It's a much better country than people give it to be, and we are privileged to live here. But the purpose of this story is I want to just compare the kingdom of God with the kingdom of this world. So to become a kingdom of God or become a citizen, there are no prerequisites. You can be sickly, lame, uneducated, well-educated, all of that. It doesn't matter if you want to become part of the kingdom of God. He accepts you just as you are. You don't have to achieve something. You don't have to do something first. It is a decision that you can make to become part of the kingdom of God. If you want to become a citizen of the kingdom of heaven, you're going to have to live according to God's laws, God's rules. It's not a question you can make your own. And sometimes I find it so interesting that people say, Christianity is full of legalism and rules and stuff, but really it's not. If you really go and look the basic stuff that Christianity teaches, if you want to make it a law thing, which it's not, is considerably less laws and legals and requirements than any country's laws. I don't think there's a country in the world that's got less laws and regulations and stuff than you might be able to put to the kingdom of God. It's not a legalistic thing in any case. It's not about laws and stuff like that to be a citizen. But even if it was, your country that you live in now, you are more legalistic than the church or the Christians are. You just don't realize it. The interesting thing is that nobody will dream of allowing somebody to become a citizen of their country, of Australia, on their own terms. However, when we come to God and His kingdom, quite often we want to negotiate with God. We want to say, yeah, God, I want to serve you, but this is what I want in exchange. Yet when we become citizens on it, it's like we give up everything to get that thing. It's just amazing for me. And as I said, most of the stuff I heard about Australia is not quite true. They do have many laws, but all countries have laws. And we are happy to live here. But I want to encourage you to not allow the stories that people tell you about God that are negative and not true to put you off from making that decision to become a citizen. Explore it, go to the Bible, read the Bible, ask God, speak to people that are really committed Christian. Quite often we get here, so like most of my input that I got about Australia before I moved there were not from Australians. There were people living in Australia that got their information third and fourth and fifth hand, and all sorts of stuff. They weren't actually living here. They didn't actually know what it is. And it's the same way most of our information we get about the kingdom of God from people are people that are not part of that kingdom. And so their input is not relevant. And so for me, I just thought I'd share this short story today about my path of becoming a citizen in Australia. And in a like manner, I had to make a decision to follow God at one stage. And a final thought about the kingdom of God, it doesn't allow dual citizenship. You have to give up your worldly citizenship or the citizenship of the kingdom of the devil to become a part of the kingdom of God. You cannot have both. You have to give it up. That's the one thing. And the second thing that I would like to just mention here is that we can't have dual citizenship. And I don't know. See you next week. Bye.